Yokoso washitare. Welcome. Today we've got something a little bit different going on. We're going to be headed out to a Soto Zen Buddhist temple. I was recommended to go check this temple out by a coworker. Apparently, while there, you can do some seated Zen meditation under the direction of professional Zen Buddhist monks, which is something that I'm looking forward to trying out. Now, I've actually been to this temple before, and unfortunately, they don't let you record anything inside the temple complex itself or inside the temple itself, but I can at least show you some of the outside, some of the architecture, and how beautiful it is, and give you a little bit of my thoughts on what it's like to meditate and practice Zen from the perspective of somebody who does not come from a tradition of Buddhism. But anyway, looking forward to it, and let's head out. Well, friends, welcome to Shobolji. Let's have a look around, shall we? Okay, this is the main hall of the temple. And what you can't tell from looking at it is that it's actually really huge. But it's gorgeous. This thatched roof. They replace it once every 40 years. 40 years. It's quite the project, the priests were telling me. But it is a beautiful location, and I'm sure it'd be even more beautiful if it weren't late winter and all the trees were dead or were alive. Again, here is the main hall. And now that I'm a little closer, you might be able to appreciate the size of it. It is not small. Oh man. Out here deep in the mountains. Absolutely gorgeous place. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, one thing you won't get from watching the video is the smell. They've constantly got incense burning, and it is a nice smell. And it just wafts very faintly in the air everywhere. Adds a real mystique to the atmosphere. Highly recommend coming to this place or just any other Buddhist temple if you're in Japan. Fantastic way to experience some old Japanese culture and enjoy the scenery and maybe learn a thing or two. Anyway, well, that was certainly an enlightening experience, no pun intended. Very beautiful temple, very interesting time, very educational, very fulfilling too. But it's time to head home, and you guys will be able to hear some more of my thoughts on the matter if things go according to plan. But until I get home, see ya. Okay, well, now that we're safe and sound home, I want to just give a little bit of my thoughts on going to this temple, trying out some seated Zen meditation for the first time, and give my opinions a little bit about Zen, Buddhism, as somebody who is an outsider and does not come from a Buddhist or a Zen or a Japanese tradition. So, to start off, just to recap, I went to a temple by the name of Shobolji. It's located in Iwate Prefecture in Oshu City. I was recommended to check this temple out because I have a fascination with ancient Japanese history and philosophy and thought and culture. And one of the people with whom I work knows that I like to frequent a famous Buddhist temple in the area, but she then suggested that I try this other temple because it's smaller and not as crowded and not as big of a touristy spot, so why not give this a shot? Plus, it's got that amazingly gorgeous thatched roof that just has this super awesome old school Japanese feel about it. And then I learned that they also offer professionally done, directed by actual Buddhist priests, Zen meditation experiences. So, I've been a student of Buddhism. Well, I've been studying Buddhism for about 6 years now or so. Now, I am not a Buddhist. Like I said, I am an outsider. I'm actually a fairly devout Christian. I come from rural America. I do not have I am in no ways an expert on Buddhism. Again, I have studied it in a personal capacity for nigh on 6 years, and I think it is fascinating and absolutely love it, and I am a huge proponent of Buddhism, which I will get into. But pretty much everything I've learned up until this point has been through the internet, through watching lectures on YouTube, through Alan Watts, which Alan Watts is great, don't get me wrong. But I loved the idea of having a chance to actually learn it from ordained, practiced Buddhist priests in a official capacity, for lack of a better term. So I jumped at the chance. And because the temple complex doesn't allow any recording, pictures, or anything inside the temple itself, which makes sense, it is a place of worship. They don't want it to become this frivolous social media thing that people just come to get clicks for, which is something I can definitely respect. But I will explain a little bit of what actually happened. So the first thing that happened was, after paying the little bit that I needed to, because, priests gotta eat, I go into a waiting room where they taught me some very basic things, like how to fluff the pillow up properly. And by pillow, I mean the fluffy seated cushion that you sit on. They taught me a little bit how to hold my hands properly when I'm walking, because that's something you have to be aware of. Which is the first point that I want to bring up. Usually when we think of Zen especially, Buddhism in general, but Zen especially, it's kind of like this hippie, flowy, non-conformist, weird kind of do everything your way kind of a thing. But that is very not how it actually was. It was very strictly regimented. There were lots of precepts, proprieties, things that you needed to follow, like, again, holding your hands, making sure that you fluff the pillow up properly. When you enter the actual meditation room, you have to enter in by stepping in with your left foot. When you want to turn around, you have to turn around from the right and not from the left. And there's all these little teeny tiny rules that are so emblematic of Japanese culture. So I learned some basic things in this waiting room, and then we walked to the actual room for meditation because it wasn't in the same room. And with our hands in this position, and as we passed by some of these rooms where I guess the main hall was, they did ask us to bow to these rooms. And again, like I said, I'm a fairly devout Christian, but out of respect for the people who so graciously let me experience their culture and their traditions and let me into their places of worship, I'm not about to really enforce the third commandment, But that's neither here nor there. What's important is your heart, but we're not going to get into an extended diatribe on Christianity and Buddhism and how it fits or doesn't fit. But anyway, so after we make it to the actual meditation room. We get to actually sit down, finally, after following all of these rules and regulations for actually sitting down properly. And we get to the actual meditation. And the first thing to note is that it was very uncomfortable. I am not particularly used to sitting in a cross-legged position on the floor or even with a cushion underneath. I am a little bit more used to it than most Americans, but that's not saying much. I am not as used to it as most Japanese people are, and so it was rather uncomfortable. One of my legs was in pain for most of the time, and the only time that wasn't in pain was because it went numb because it fell asleep. And then it was so quiet. Like, if you're an anxious person, it might behoove you to think very, very carefully and be very wary of trying something like this. Because I'm telling you guys, I could hear the guy next to me swallow. That's how quiet it was. And I was having some very minor bowel movements. Nothing major. For whatever reason, some of my intestines decided that they wanted to be a little bit rock. They wanted to make a little bit of noise. Not very much, and I don't know if anybody else could hear it, but it was so quiet, I wondered. And it was rather embarrassing. Here I am, this outsider, getting a first chance to try seated Zen meditation, and am I screwing up everybody else's focus because my body has decided that it wants to make noise? Noises that I don't even notice. I might be making that noise right now. I don't know. It's not that quiet. I can't tell. So, after 20 minutes of seated meditation, we got to take a little bit of a break. Except it wasn't really a break, because it was a break in the sense that we got to stand up and move around a bit, but it was still a meditative experience where we basically played follow the leader. But the leader was the head Buddhist priest, and we were only allowed to move when he moved and move in the same manner that he moved. However, he took maybe one step every 30 seconds, and even one step is a bit generous because it was more like half a step. But after having a bit of a break, so I could prepare my knees and my legs for another round of maybe 20 minutes long of seated Zen meditation. And then after we got done with those 20 minutes, I had to still sit there while we were distributed and given little booklets with sutras written on it, so Buddhist scripture. And we opened it up to one of these scriptures, and the head Buddhist priest read from it and explained very slowly and methodically and in very simple terms what it meant. And then after maybe another 10 minutes of that, so I've probably been sitting in an uncomfortable position for a collective 40 to 50 minutes, almost an hour. We finally are done and we can exit the room, and again, in a very strict, regimented fashion. Now, from that, you may be thinking, wow, that sounds horrible. You were in pain the whole time. That must not have been very amusing. But actually, I enjoyed it. Do I recommend Zen meditation to people? Actually, I would recommend it in general for a couple of reasons. Number one, going to a Buddhist temple is great way to experience the culture, great way to see some really nice architecture. And Zen meditation as well. This is a fantastic cultural experience, and as somebody who really wants to understand Japanese culture and the Japanese tradition and their religion and everything, I was very grateful to have a chance to get such a direct window into that. So as a cultural experience, 100% recommend it. You want to try out traditional ancient Japan, go for it, 100%. I will warn you though, again, I am probably a little bit more used to sitting in a position like this than most Americans, not as used to it as the vast majority of Japanese people. So I would say that if you are not used to sitting like that, you should probably practice a little bit and get a little bit used to it before you sit down for an hour in a very uncomfortable position. So cultural experience, yes, go for it, by all means. Now, do I recommend meditation for other reasons? Absolutely. Like I said, I am an outsider. I am not of a Buddhist tradition. I am a fairly devout Christian, and I don't have any plans on ever becoming a full-fledged Buddhist. Although, given the fact that I really like Zen, and if I do understand it properly, which technically nobody understands it properly, if I understand it properly, but none of the Buddhist priests, even after talking to some of the Buddhist priests, nobody has ever come out and said, no, you're absolutely wrong, you don't get it, you don't understand it. Because I talked to these priests, and I want to know, like, do I get it? Do I understand it? Am I doing it right? Am I meditating right? And I asked these priests those questions, and none of them said I was doing it wrong. None of them said my thought processes were wrong, largely because thought processes are kind of the exact thing that Zen is trying to get rid of, but that's a little beside the point. Yes, I recommend Zen meditation to people in general. Buddhism, and Zen in particular, I feel has some very profound, very fulfilling ideas that anybody can apply to themselves. I personally think my study of Buddhism and Zen in particular has made me a better Christian. I think that it will make a Buddhist person a better Buddhist, obviously. I think these skills and these ways of thinking are very applicable to people of no religious background who don't believe in anything like this. It can fundamentally change the way you see the world. One of my own personal interpretations is that Zen in particular helps you to stop using the word should. Things should be this way. It should not be that way. I should be happy. I should have more money. The world should not be a terrible place. But Zen gets you to stop saying that. And the reason why that's important is because by saying should, you are by definition setting yourself up for disappointment. And when you stop saying should and you just start accepting that there is no should, there is only is. Things are the way that they are. That is a very, very, if peaceful is the right word, but it helps you to stop being so upset with everything around you. And Zen meditation is the foundation upon which Zen rests. It is by learning to sit there and let your thoughts be your thoughts. Let them just do what they're supposed to do, and letting you be you instead of, I have to be this, I should be this, I am defined as this, I am defined as X, Y, or Z. All of that gets taken care of, and you can be more satisfied, more fulfilled. It's just a very nice thing that I can say from personal experience. So, as a cultural experience, by all means try it out. From my own personal recommendation as far as what Zen philosophy and practice can do for you, I think it's a fantastic thing, and it will make you just a better person in general. And the nice thing about Zen particularly, but a lot of times Buddhism, which is not particularly an evangelical religion, they're not trying really hard to get the word out there because they believe that if you don't get it in this life, you'll get it in some life. So no rush. When you're ready, you by all means. It is a mode of thought that I think is very, very applicable to just anybody. It's very helpful. And again, that is my personal opinion though. Everybody's going to be different. Everybody has different ideas about it. And like I said, I am no ordained Buddhist priest. I am just some amateur who is very interested in this stuff, but honestly, I can't tell you for a fact that I even know what I'm talking about. So take everything I say with not just a grain of salt, but at least a full pinch. So, to sum up, it was a great experience. I enjoyed it, even though it was uncomfortable at times. I recommend anybody else giving it a shot. This temple, especially if you ever are in Japan and you want to go to Iwate, I highly recommend checking out Shoboji. I'm going to put the name in the video and maybe show some pictures. So you can look up Shoboji Iwate and you can find some fantastic pictures on Google or wherever you want to search it. But with that all being said, I want to thank you for your support, for your listen/watch. This is a little bit different of a video than what I'm normally doing, but if you like this video and you want to see more content like this, please, by all means, feel free to like the video, tell me if you appreciated it or if you enjoyed this. Also, if you have any questions for me about Buddhism, about Japanese culture, about life in Japan, because that is where I live right now, I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys as much as my schedule will actually allow me to. Thank you so much for your time, your patience, your attention, and hopefully we will see you in a future video. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Zen is pretty cool. So, goodbye.